Sick Harrison Price for Friday, March 14th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. In this program, a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sick Harrison alongside Blake Price, four-time. Whoa.
Oh, taking away a Juno?
Whoa. Almost sold him short. Four-time Juno Award winner.
Now, one album wasn't that good, but...
Yeah. One of these Junos is not like
the music was, just the production wasn't that great.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't even remember who he won the Junos for. When you've got that many sometimes, I asked him once, what are the 4 Junos for? And he rattled off like 2, and then he
rooting through the cardboard box,
3.
clank, clank, clank.
It's like, what was the 4th one for?
It's related to the Snoop Dogg story.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Too many cells lost, yeah.
Mm-hmm. A big show today in advance of a big weekend for the Vancouver Canucks, and actually a big weekend for the Vancouver Warriors too, Blake. We had our buddy Teddy Jenner in here from TSN calling the game tonight. The Christian Del Bianco era begins at Rogers Arena for the Warriors, a game back in the playoffs, looking to break through there in the NLL. Local hero Christian Del Bianco. New goaltender they traded for. But the Canucks, of course, tomorrow against the Chicago Blackhawks, Sunday against the Utah Hockey Club. And what could be a big step forward towards the playoffs. More on that in a moment. Speaking of the playoffs, the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Do you believe in just get in and anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Sick Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. Blake Price, fire away.
The insinuation is with the question that we're talking about winning the Stanley Cup. That's the insinuation. And for that, the answer is unequivocally no. But I do believe in get into the playoffs. You never know when you can author a pretty fun storybook run. So I'm gonna have to vote because I think again the insinuation is win the cup. I'm gonna vote no, but that's my little asterisk. Parentheses thing is you can go on a 1 to 2 round run that's pretty fun for your fans.
Let me ask you this: we haven't really taken this on. Maybe we've been too guilty of black and white, and as you know, I hate black and white thinking, or at least confining yourself to black and white thinking. The world is gray. Nuance, subtlety matters.
Mm-hmm.
What would be a playoff run? And again, not lifting the cup, but what would be a playoff run that you would think is worth it for the Vancouver Canucks to have sacrificed some potential pieces to future teams? Because I do think they have sacrificed, by not being sellers at this deadline, the potential to strengthen the club for next year and beyond. I asked that.
What makes it worth it, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. What makes it worth it? What? And I asked that because I have someone in my mentions here, Amon. The objective for the Canucks isn't a cup run this year. It's to continue the momentum and get into the playoffs back-to-back years and continue to build a winner. Missing playoffs sets the team back and players' thought process on the way forward, especially when your best players are 25 to 28. And further, just look at the Capitals last year. Worst number 8 seed in goal differential to enter the playoffs. And then in the offseason, they added more pieces. Now they're a number 1 seed. So build off that.
I honestly, if they got to the second round this year somehow, some way, given the drama, given the story that they would reach the same round as the near President's Trophy winning team the year before, I think that would be a profound victory. I mean, that's asking a lot. I'm not saying that is easy. But I think it's as easy as that to all of a sudden rewrite history a little bit.
I thought of that, and yet I have Patrick Allvin ringing in my ears from last May of, we haven't accomplished nothing here. We didn't even get halfway there. And so, while I do agree with you, when you look at this team, when you look at it as performed through 60-plus games, when you look at the offense or lack thereof, if they get through a Winnipeg or a Dallas or a Vegas, that is a hell of an upset in round one. And yet, I think if we're going to hold them to a standard, if we're going to be aspirational, again, and that's what Patrick Allvin said was the mantra for this team last May. Didn't really stick to it this March, but that was the mantra last May. That was the one we were all going, damn right, Patrick. Then I think you have to get to the conference final, Blake. As far a bridge as that sounds like, feels like, as difficult as that will be, but the Vancouver Canucks got a standing ovation from their fans in a Game 7 playoff loss at Rogers Arena last year. And yet, for all of us who watched that team and had watched the previous decade of Vancouver Canucks hockey, that was a deserved standing ovation. We all understood why that was happening.
And Matt,
we were all resolute that it was a successful season, even if it fell way short of the Stanley Cup, not even halfway.
If it was a standard issue season this year, even if it was a step back, if they are currently where LA or Edmonton is.
And I hear you,
and
Blake.
JT Miller's in the lineup and all that sort of stuff.
No, but Blake, that's self-inflicted. Progress is progress. A round 1 defeat is not progress. A round 2 defeat is not progress.
What's self-inflicted, though, about the JT Miller situation? There was nothing self-inflicted there.
They made the JT Miller trade? They had agency.
Well, yeah. They had agency? Really? How much agency did they have?
They had agency to trade JT Miller earlier because they knew he and Petey were a problem. They had agency to trade Petey earlier or not re-sign Petey.
Okay. You just talked about them making it to the second round, getting a standing ovation. The management, no matter what they think is happening in the dressing room, at that point in time is going, it's clearly doable. We just did that.
What's clearly doable?
Their relationship is clearly manageable enough that we can challenge for the President's Trophy and we can take a Stanley Cup finalist to Game 7. It's clearly manageable enough. So I don't begrudge them for thinking it was
manageable
doable.
Enough in the confines of last season that started so great and had the vibes rolling.
Right, and so they were wrong. But they had evidence before them that it was manageable. They did.
They also had evidence that it was not manageable, but nevertheless.
I think stuff has changed. And situation has changed. And, hey, I'm not saying it's acceptable to just keep bowing out in the second round. You always want to make progress. But given what's happened, given the context of what's happened, I think they would be ecstatic, and I think the fan base would be ecstatic if that was the fate of the Vancouver Canucks.
Second round.
Yep.
Ecstatic.
Yeah, I think they would. Given what's happened, I think they would be ecstatic.
Check me the YouTube comments. Super Chat is open here. Hit that Super Chat button. Partial proceeds, half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. I do want to know from Canucks fans, would you be ecstatic getting to the second round this year?
Might have to be a poll question next week.
Yeah. I'll say this. I can understand ecstatic if you make the conference final because, as we talk about all the time, Ken Holland rule. If you're one of the last 4 teams standing in the National Hockey League, unless you're a defending champion or a team that's been knocking on the Stanley Cup door for several years, you are very happy with that. That's a successful season.
If they get
second round,
if they get 3 or 4 points this week and optimism is at a high that they're going to get
ecstatic.
We'll ask that question.
That's a very big word, ecstatic. I will quibble with his big word.
The first 3 replies in the chat, Jake, Blake's right, Mike, heck yeah, Still 46, agree. Woodlake, the first detractor, saying no. So those are the first 4 votes out of the hopper.
What were the first 3 names, sir?
Jake, Mike, and Still 46.
Jake, Mike, Still 46. Have you no vision?
It's not about that.
Are you not aspirational, Jake, Mike?
Of course
Still
they
46?
are. Of course they are. But they're also realistic.
Have you scrubbed history from your mind, Jake, Mike, and Still 46?
No, they haven't. They saw the decade of Benning and went, can we just have playoffs, please?
But Blake, They saw the decade of Benning. That is just about as bad as it gets in the National
Right,
Hockey.
but it's the fresh
Unless you're
wound.
in full teardown rebuild or an expansion team of yesteryear getting the shit kicked out of you night after night. Like, those are the only things that are worse than what we saw with a team that was year after year doing its utmost to get into the playoffs and falling desperately short. That was ineptitude. That was managerial malpractice.
You're making my point. So the second round is like winning the cup for a Canucks fan right now.
Last year. They made the second round last year.
Yeah, and given the drama of this year, given the Coronation Street-like drama of this year, my God.
Oh,
they'd love it to happen again.
No. This is one of the great hockey markets in the world that has not won a Stanley Cup. Please do not tell me we're ecstatic getting the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You can't look at this team and suggest that's a possibility.
Of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You can't look at
after having a team that you thought was, yes, a player away or two players away from being a cup contender.
But do you look at the Chicago Blackhawks and say, let's see if they can make the playoffs this year? No, not realistic. Nor is it to say that it's realistic for the Vancouver Canucks to make the conference final this year.
You missed it. T-Mart was in the lower lobby here, and he saw us having one, and he just had a little smirk on his face. I remember those two.
Yeah. God, they're annoying.
God, he's so happy to be out of the producer's booth. I voted no. I voted no because the lower seeds, now wild cards, 7 and 8 seeds in the past. Can they win rounds? Yes. Can they go on runs? Yes. They almost never win the Stanley Cup. And don't talk to me about the 2012 LA Kings as a 8 seed that won the Cup. They had a catastrophic first couple of months of the season.
And we're brilliant.
And from December, Christmas on, were one of the best teams in the NHL. I know people point to the St. Louis Blues. The St. Louis Blues had been a contender for many years going into that season. They had horseshit goaltending early in the year. Binnington took over. And they were in a Central Division playoff spot. They weren't even a wild card. So they were no worse than a 6 seed.
Now, that being said, the Kings Kings in particular, goaltending's a hell of a drug.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing, again, I'm being realistic here, folks. Both of these things are highly unlikely. But the Canucks theoretically have goaltending that could do what Jonathan Quick did via two guys. They theoretically do. We know the extenuating circumstances there with regards to the injury. Secondarily, I mean, if Elias Pettersson does complete the full turnaround and gets back to elite Pettersson, I mean, that is like a trade deadline acquisition that we haven't seen.
Oh, God.
What,
I hate trade deadline acquisition proxies. We're going to use them as our own rental.
Guys, this is the same guy that a moment ago was like, they must make the conference final. And then I say, well, here's your slim path. He's like, no, give me a break. That's not happening.
I wasn't quibbling.
That's the only way that happens.
I don't think it's going to happen.
That's the only way that happens.
I don't think it's going to happen. I do have doubts. I'm not quibbling with that. What I'm quibbling with at large is you lowering the bar.
No, I'm just
frankly, Blake, like, it's our responsibility to keep the bar here.
It's
franchise
realism,
that has
Matt.
never won a cup.
It's realism.
No, I understand that, Blake. But what I'm saying is, let's go big picture here. Let's not get distracted by tiny images.
No, but the big picture is next year. Next year, like it's not happening this year. So can I say there should be feet to fire that this team comes back and is a top 3 team with a bullet next year? Like, that should be the expectation? Abso-freaking-lutely it should be. And that's what the standard that we'll hold them to. But in the here and now, there's 4 weeks left in the season. It's not likely that you've got a Stanley Cup finalist here.
And for those of you who are saying the 82 and 94 Canucks as lower seeds, first of all, I think you can argue those runs were even more impressive because in a pre-cap era, there was pretty great disparity between the NHL have and have-nots. Let's remember the 82 run. The Kings did them a very, very good solid in eliminating the Oilers and Darryl Evans and the miracle on Manchester. And 94, while a 7 seed, talk to anybody who was on that Canucks team, you talk to anybody who watched that Canucks team or that era of Canucks hockey, that was a team that had more talent and performed in the years around that season better than a 7th seed.
I'll say this, Matt.
But that one would have been an outlier. I still think you can argue that one as an outlier because the 7th seed coming a post away. If they win that Stanley Cup, we would be talking about the 94 Canucks as one of the great underdog stories in the history of the National Hockey League, if not in the Big Four North American sports leagues, because that would have been a hellacious achievement in a pre-cap.
Here's the great regret for the Canucks right now, in the here and now. And I've said this a bunch in the last week. No one is saying, hey, what if they were 10-0 out of the break? But again, I'll underline, if they were just marginally better in the last 10 games, if they were an average kind of team, 5-4-1, 6-4, they would be within 3 points of the Edmonton Oilers, who are in an absolute free fall. And then third place in the division becomes up for grabs. And then you stay in the Pacific Division for the first 2 rounds. And then, actually, you can start to dream a little bit. Right now, the Canucks are fighting for the second wild card. You're going to go over. You're guaranteed to fit. You were saying Dallas or Winnipeg. No, it's Winnipeg. Winnipeg's got an 8-point lead on Dallas right now. So the second wild card's going to face Winnipeg.
Is there games in hand there?
A couple.
Mm-hmm. Is there games head-to-head there?
Maybe, but that's a lot needs to happen for Dallas. It'll be Winnipeg. Winnipeg versus the Canucks to start, and then the winner of Dallas versus Colorado. Like, good frickin' luck as the second wild card this year for whoever it is. Murderer's Row. Mm-hmm. Staying in the Pacific, you've actually got a path.
And just for the context, the 93 Canucks won the Smythe division. The 95 Canucks were the second-place team in their division, so...
Yeah, it was a down year.
Yeah, and there was also in-season surgery, right, to improve the team. Anyways, our daily poll question is a presentation of Surrey Mitsubishi, and everyone at the dealership around town wants to get EP40 back on top. Every time he scores a point, you save $500 on a new or pre-owned vehicle. If he gets 2 points, like he did in Calgary Wednesday, and this is good today, this is good tomorrow, up until puck drop, $1,000 off a new or pre-owned vehicle at Surrey Mitsubishi.
If he's going to turn things around, there is a 3-point night coming.
No, don't wait. Go right now. Get your $1,000 off. $1,000 is better now than waiting on a 3-point night.
If there's a turnaround.
Time to cheer EP40 back to the top score. More, save more. Remember to mention Sekeres Price if you're looking for this discount. More value, more savings. Bring them any offer. Surrey Mitsubishi will beat it. Visit 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. Top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. There was a moment this morning we said, what are we going to talk about today? And then we just spent 18 minutes bickering about aspirations, about bars lowering, about successful seasons, realism. Mm-hmm. Moving weekend. A little nod here to golf and the players, right?
Yeah.
Back-to-back games at home against Chicago and Utah. This is the Chicago Blackhawks, the second worst team in the National Hockey League, and the Utah Hockey Club, who is the team right below the Vancouver Canucks at 69 points to Vancouver 71 on the same number.
San Jose barely had trouble beating the Blackhawks last night.
You beat Chicago.
Have to.
You get your 2 points, and then you beat Utah to further separate yourself from one of the chasers. Mm-hmm. Then you're in a head-to-head derby with your old rivals from that Smythe division, the Calgary Flames. And here's the good news, everybody. Calgary has Colorado tonight. The Avalanche are 7-2-1 in their last 10. And then Calgary begins, and we had mentioned this as well, a hellacious road trip through the Eastern Conference starting Monday. They're in Toronto. They're in they're at the Rangers, who is fighting for a wild card spot. They're at the Devils. They're at the Islanders. And the Canucks have some of those teams on their schedule in a road trip coming up. But then Calgary gets back home. They got Dallas. They got a Battle of Alberta. They got the Avalanche again. So look, things are pretty tough sledding here for Calgary over the next couple of weeks, where Vancouver has some very winnable games, and they start tomorrow at Rogers Arena with the Blackhawks. St. Louis, if you're interested, because they're in the mix here as well. No easy-peasy weekend for them either. They're in Minnesota Saturday, and then quickly back home to face the Anaheim Ducks. So they're on a back-to-back too with, the Ducks are better than Chicago, and Minnesota's better than Utah. So strength of schedule here,
in the immediate,
or weakness of schedule in the immediate, advantage Vancouver Canucks.
I've seen, by the way, St. Louis has a very weak schedule the rest of the season. So the Canucks have St. Louis coming up this week as well. Important game there, because even if you win that 4-pointer in St. Louis,
and that's Thursday, that begins the 6-game trip for the Canucks.
St. Louis has got a very easy schedule the rest of the way. So for a lot of odds makers are looking at the Blues going, if there's any of those two teams that are not sort of head-to-head, is Calgary, Vancouver, of course, in the driver's seat right now. If there's a team to make the chase run, it's going to be the Blues most likely.
But also,
even though the Utah is generally regarded as the better team, but the Blues have got this easy schedule.
But also remember this: when you play, those games matter, right? Because you want to be the lead horse coming down the stretch here. Yeah, St. Louis may have weaker games weaker opponents down the stretch than you. Mm-hmm. But if you take care of your business on the front end, then they're chasing. Then suddenly overtime losses and things like that.
And they got to play desperate.
Exactly.
Not all teams can play desperate.
So take care of the business in front of you. I'm not saying it's going to be easy or anything like that, but this should be, at minimum, a 3-point weekend for the Vancouver Canucks, and a 4-point weekend is very much in hand.
Yeah.
Well, doable.
A big part of that, of course, is health. And today's practice was going to be a big indicator of whether or not the 4-point weekend was a realistic ask based on health. And Matt, practice couldn't have gone any better for the Canucks.
This is honestly, things are starting to come up Vancouver Canuck here. First, tell them about our friends at Yellow Dog Neighborhood Foolish Winery.
Well, the District Wine Village is starting to buzz a little bit. The sun is out. Mm-hmm. Spring is on the horizon.
That's how it works.
So all over BC is becoming your destination of mind here. Friday, March 14th, Foolish Wine, Neighborhood Outpost, and Yellow Dog Spirits are officially back open for business. That is today, folks.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you're a single fella in Penticton, in OK Falls, in Oliver, really good ratio at the at the Penticton Wine Village.
Open Friday to Sunday, 12 to 6.
Oliver Wine Village.
Yeah.
Really good ratio. Been there a few times. There's a lot of stagettes there.
Dating tips with Matthew
Karras. I'm just saying. You know, we believe it or not, we tend to have more male listeners and viewers than female.
Tend to, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a good ratio. Tyler Myers is on the ice. Elias Pettersson is on the ice. Thatcher Demko is not only on the ice, but he's participating with his teammates. Jeff Patterson has the video there. Look at that. That's out at UBC. And there is Thatcher Demko participating with his teammates, going through motions, saves, exercises, drills that would replicate a National Hockey League game. Coach Tocchet had said earlier in the week that Demko's going to need 2 to 4 practices before he feels comfortable putting him back in a game. We're talking 5 weeks now since the latest Thatcher Demko setback, and it was a setback. Tocchet took that on this week as well. He said, I characterized it as a tweak, but I shouldn't have because it's a goalie and I didn't really know, and it was mostly wishful thinking. So it was a setback. But there was Thatcher Demko.
Did anybody ask for clarification? When you say practice, you mean actual practice, or do game day skates count?
So here's the thing: if you had a goaltender of Thatcher Demko's clout,
yeah,
who, if he got a morning skate that was kind of like a mini practice, might be able to play or got you further along in the Thatcher Demko knowledge, then I think you organize a morning skate that it was like a little mini practice to be able to make that call on Demko.
Like you're not morning.
I think that is appropriate.
You're not morning skating on Sunday.
No, you're going to morning skate tomorrow.
But do you ask everybody to come tomorrow and make that practice number 2?
Idea. I don't think that's the worst idea. So long as Thatcher's going back-to-back days here.
Well, here's the thing.
Like, if he feels good after practice, like, I'm let me get back at her, then I think you do something like that.
Here's the miracle possibility. And I don't even know if this is good strategy because, again, the 4-pointer's on Sunday. But do you talk to Thatcher Demko after practice today? Do you find out how he feels? And if he feels marvelous, do you do this practice tomorrow, the big game day skate tomorrow, get him more reps? And again, if the reports are good after that, do you start Kevin Lankinen tomorrow and start Thatcher Demko on Sunday?
I hear your mouth, but I disagree, and here's why.
Okay.
2, of course, is on the minimum side. And if one is a morning skate, it's really like 1.5. Who are we kidding? Number 2, I realize Shilov's has been stinky this year. His one win is against Chicago. He should be able to beat the Chicago Blackhawks with Artur Shilov.
Yeah,
and
you would hope.
The other thing,
you would hope.
Like, you'll probably find either whether it's the morning skate, whether it's a full practice on Monday. Coming off the back-to-back, it would be a little unusual. But Winnipeg is here on Tuesday.
Yeah, you can't play Demko versus Winnipeg.
Why not?
His first game back is the best team in the league?
Yeah. Why not? Challenge. Thatcher, you were an elite goaltender. And the guy on the other end is the only guy who was better than you last year and took that Vezina trophy. Son, we have so much confidence in you. We're starting you against the Winnipeg Jets and Connor Hellebuck.
We're going to disagree a lot today.
We're going to treat
Always
you
happens.
like the franchise goaltender and Vezina trophy guy that you deserve.
I don't know why you're always so wrong on Fridays. But
No. You have no vision, Blake.
It's dangerous.
It's not.
He's going to be way busier.
You want to put him in this weekend. You're telling me Tuesday is dangerous. For what? If he gets ventilated, he gets ventilated. Every NHL goaltender gets ventilated once in a while. You're probably not going to beat Winnipeg anyways.
I don't think they can take that sort of approach of you're probably not going to win. It's a home game.
Blake, you oftentimes will see a backup goaltender thrown to the Wolves against a great, and that's it, sink or swim. This is along those lines, logic-wise, except for it's a Vezina Trophy finalist. Plus, you also buy Lankinen some rest in that scenario. Again, tell me what the chat is saying.
About Demko versus the Jets?
Goaltending arrangement, but yes, Demko versus the Jets.
We'll put that out there. Okay. Folks, do you think Demko versus the Jets is foolhardy or genius?
Surely we have some people in the YouTube chat with vision who believe.
Okay, it's one thing, would you do it?
He's a competitor.
There's no chance the Canucks are doing
Why?
That. Because of what I just said.
No, but that gets him to the number of, he's going to have the requisite number of practices. He's not going to have the requisite number of practices or barely skin of his teeth.
Okay.
And I agree with you. The Utah game is the most important. That's the 4-point game. Yeah, Lankinen has to play that one.
Steve, Matt, no. Triple exclamation mark. You want to put him against a team that will make him go side to side more than almost every other team in the league? Question mark.
Mm-hmm. No, but
play him.
We're going to have to cross that bridge.
Kevin, might not be a bad idea to start Demko versus the Jets. Smelly, stars rise to the challenge. Olivia, don't put Demko in cold. Give him the Sunday game first. Max, do not start Demko against the Jets.
You cannot afford to lose the Sunday game.
That one's more 50-50.
Winnipeg is not your derby.
Though.
Winnipeg is not your derby. Utah is your derby. Now, let me throw this in your pipe. Adin Hill re-signs with the Vegas Golden Knights. Here are the top UFA goaltenders this summer. Frederik Andersen, Ilya Samsonov, Alexander Georgiev, Jake Allen. And then you get into the Alex Lyons, Dan Vladar's pure backups. So bottom line, if you're looking for a starting goaltender this offseason on the free agent market or a co-starter, your options are kind of limited and they're sort of hope bets. Anderson's pretty good when he plays, but he's forever hurt.
And he's forever maligned for not winning games when they matter.
Right. Samsonov, okay. Georgiev, forget about it.
Yeah.
Jake Allen, okay, maybe.
Jake Allen's sort of in the Freddie Anderson mold, though, too. Yeah. When it matters, does he win?
I think the Vancouver Canucks are going to keep Demko next year because I think they're going to feel we need two goaltenders. And, I think they're also going to feel probably not going to be amongst the highest scoring teams. So let's try and lock things down and win close to 1-3-2 games. But Blake, is Thatcher Demko's trade value in the summer going to be such where you just go, oh, is Thatcher Demko's trade value in the summer going to be enough that he could be the centerpiece to a second line center? Or paired with a first round pick or something else of substance, he can get you that elusive second line center?
You have to explore that possibility.
I think you do.
I grant you that. You do have to explore that possibility. I think there was a universe where that would be the case. I don't know if that universe exists anymore. I don't know if goaltending has gotten to the point now where look at Adin Hill. Adin Hill's stock could not be any better. The guy's won a Stanley Cup, helped Canada win the Four Nations face-off.
Well, did he?
Yeah, well, if he did, he was part of the mix,
He
I
didn't
suppose.
play a game, but yes.
He got the honor, got named,
Yes.
has that acclaim.
Had the honor of being
Yeah.
on a weak Canadian crease, one of the three goaltenders selected.
But things really couldn't have gone any better for him this season for what Adin Hill is. And his cap hit is $6 million, which is, hey, we'll all take it. But, he is far from a $10 million goaltender. Those deals just don't get signed anymore. You get term as a star goalie, but I don't know that you're going to get big dollar value anymore. So my point is, people are okay rolling the dice and with mediocre goaltending. They think if their price, and that's contract, but also trade value, like, you're not going to pay through the nose for Thatcher Demko.
No, but it's a digestible contract.
Yep.
$5 million, one more year.
Just for one more year. So it's a long-term rental.
But I almost think that's better. Like, if he had more term, I think you would sweat the injuries more. But on a 1 year at reasonable cost for a starting goaltender, for a guy who's been a Vezina finalist and someone who, when healthy, has been amongst the 5 best goalies in the world, I do wonder if there's going to be a team out there that goes, you know what? That is worthwhile. That if we can get that and something else from Vancouver, we might be willing to part with a significant
The funny
piece.
thing is, Matt, is that the first names that come to mind that need that kind of goaltending are in division.
That is really, and in fact, we'll have this conversation with Jeff Marek a little later.
LA and Edmonton are the ones that immediately jump to your brain.
I know.
And you don't dare do that.
Oh, my goodness.
Although it happened with Markstrom. They let Markstrom walk. And
Calgary's Connor Zary has been suspended for 2 games for that dirty elbow on Elias Pettersson in Wednesday night's game. We mentioned the Flames have a tough schedule here, but also no Michael Backlund, no Connor Zary for the next 2. Things are going to get – Calgary's going to be tested here. They've overachieved all year. They've ridden this rookie goaltender, Dustin Wolf. How are you going to do here when the chips are down and the games rise up? Also, she mentioned Tom Wielander, Canucks prospect, named as a second-team Hockey East All-Star today. And he's the only Hockey East defenseman to have at least 21 points, be a plus 16 or better this season. We've told you he plays a big quarterfinal game against UMass tomorrow. And if they lose that game, Tom Wielander could be available sooner rather than later here for the Vancouver Canucks.
Stephen Ellis of Elite Prospects is on Canucks Convo later on today,
Yes, he is.
and he'll weigh in on what he thinks the Wielander plan should be.
Let's get to our menu today. It's brought to you by Greta Bar, fantastic spot to catch all the games home and away. It's just steps from the stadium arena. Pre-game, post-game, check out the Bitchin' Arcade at Greta, as well as the fantastic street food menu. Get a poutine and share. Believe you me.
Just eat it all.
Exactly. You better be hungry if you're ordering it for yourself. Otherwise, just share. 50 West Cordova, get Greta Bar, let the games begin. We have Patrick Johnson coming up here. Topics include Elias Pettersson breakout or breakthrough. Demko. Can anything happen in the playoffs? Marek. We talked to him about the Canucks deadline activity, what has happened with Carolina, what could still happen with Carolina, Rick Tocchet's future, and yes, Demko trade fits. That's all coming up on the program. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. Now, my bet yesterday was on the F1 race this weekend, so that's still TBD.
Mm-hmm.
Refresh me. Did you win or lose last night, or were you on a future as well? He's been hot recently. All his picks.
No, I was on a game last night, and the game that I was on was the Oilers and Devils. And I said that the Devils would have one last little sort of push in the wake of all their injuries.
And?
They beat the Oilers 3-2.
Then you've got the T, sir. This is pretty impressive. This has been a very good week for Blake. I think, are you 3-0 with a game to come in today's pick? I believe that's the case.
Also did well in my debut Safeway, but we'll save that.
Well, I mean, you lost every argument in the preceding 37 minutes, but the picks were pretty good.
If I knew Jaden Nelson was playing, I'd feel more confident about this. I'll just give you this odd. I just don't know if he's playing. Plus 160 for a goal or an assist for Jaden Nelson versus Dallas for the Whitecaps this weekend. But again, Brian White's just Brian White. He's just ever present. He's just a goal contribution machine. Mm-hmm. He's plus 150. And I don't know if he can keep scoring every single game. But he can be part of the offense too. Plus 150 on a Brian White something.
I'm also going on the Caps game. I wanted to bet the over because of the way Vancouver is playing, just tremendous move forward football. They are leading MLS in touches in the opponent's box. The system's working great. They're getting chances and they're scoring goals. Plus the flip side is they played so much soccer. Is this the game where it all breaks down and someone scores a lot on them? But it's costing 143 to win 100 on the over of 2.5. That I can't do that. Better value on a draw if you think the Caps can just stay undefeated. Maybe, and this isn't a park the bus team, but a team that is just looking to get out of a road game with a point. You're at plus 260 there. Or if you think the music today's or Saturday's the day the music dies for the Caps, Dallas is paying a plus 105. And that's our Bet365 bets of the day. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, every suspenseful moment in between. Amazing, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app. Use code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly.
Little late news from practice, by the way. Much should we spoke of the rosiness of Canucks practice with the return of Myers and Junior Pettersson, Elias. No Philip Roenick. Maintenance day. Yeah. But he did concede that Connor Garland is banged up, also missing.
Yeah. And there were a number of game time decisions against Calgary. And it's the time of year, too.
Now, Garland plays right till the last second and wins the game for them versus Calgary. So I can't imagine he's not playing tomorrow, but we'll see.
Patrick Johnson coming up next. Sakaris and Price from the historic Wall Center.
I know people are keeping track of the playoff push, but more importantly, we're inside the 10-day countdown.
Absolutely.
For the end of roll up to win.
Got to roll up
at Tim Hortons. You only have till March 23rd. So make sure you download the Tim's app and you get swiping. You could get your free coffee and your free donut, which just perks up your day. It could be more than that. It could be your next vacation, courtesy of Sell Off Vacations. It could be a $1,000 racket and cash prize. It could be a 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz. You just never know, and that's why it's so fun to play. Download the Tim's app and play Roll Up to Win. Rules apply, Canada only. No purchase necessary. Visit the app for details.
Yep. Here's Patrick Johnston of the Province and Postmedia. He covers the Vancouver Canucks, and he joins us weekly. How are you?
I'm good. Got nothing to roll up, but I'm here.
That's unfortunate. It's a Friday night.
Yeah.
And in this town, lots of rolling on a Friday night.
Like Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting Mike Rogerson excited.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Calm down now.
You know.
Do you believe that Elias Pettersson has not only had a breakout, but a breakthrough?
As long as it's not a break from, No, yes. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's been a funny course, of course. As I said before the Four Nations, the spirit seemed better. Then he had a dreadful Four Nations. Probably, I think, picked up some kind of issue. Came back, was dreadful. Snapped at IMAC.
Mm-hmm.
But now seems okay again. And obviously is playing with some vigor and some fun. And, he's trying long shots, so the confidence is there. And, that goal that he scored against the Flames, to me, was the important thing because it was a dirty areas goal and kept his stick on the, his goal scores goal. Put your stick on the ice. So, yes, I think it's there. It's still, there's still a lot to do and a lot to build. But 3 goals in 4 games is nothing to sniff at. And that, to me, is an important thing.
100%. But we need to remind ourselves what peak Elias Pettersson looks like. I'll remind you of the first month of last season. So October 2023. Opening night, 4 points. Second night, 2 points. Game 4, 2 points. Game 5, 2 points. Game 7, 2 points. Game 9, 3 points. Game 10, 3 points.
Yeah.
That's what peak Elias Pettersson. So, and hey, I am super happy for him. I'm super happy for the Canucks and the fans that we've seen what we've seen. Not diminishing the turnaround that's happened. But that's the finish line. That is the finish line.
Exactly. And the guy that scored that goal against the Rangers last year, this is sort of he's now achieved, I guess, the minimum standard, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
The bar is better. It's not just, that he's participating and shooting.
And you have to pass this point to get to that point, but
yes. But yeah, no, I do think there is signs of forward progress. Obviously Quinn Hughes being back in the lineup, I think is going to be a huge factor because we know this when JT Miller was still here, whoever was playing with Hughes was producing and whoever wasn't was not. And they were producing, I think, in many ways by default because they were with Quinn Hughes, who is their best player. So the fact is that those two will likely spend a lot of time together now, and that is only going to be a good thing. So, yes, I think there's every reason to think he's on his way back.
Do you believe Petey's resurgence is the key to the postseason?
Oh, yeah.
The postseason? Or okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, some might say Hughes' health, but
and
obviously
they're tied together.
or
sure.
Hughes' performance more so than his health, because I'm not sure his health's going to be 100%, but so long as he's playing, he's still going to help you even at diminished capacity. So you think it's Elias playing like this and they make the playoffs?
Yeah,
so that's
fundamentally, yes. I think because then it's 2 people going. Right, it's not just one guy. Like you're right. I mean, part of it is that the Hughes is going to be back. He's going to add the more than 0 that he was when he wasn't playing. Right, he's going to be a highly influential player for this team. But you need the guys to score, and they have not been scoring. Even when Hughes was in the lineup before he got hurt, They weren't scoring. It was, it's astounding to look at every single, whether you want to look at just numbers or charts, it's astounding how bad the offense was, even with Hughes in the lineup. And that was not on Hughes. That was on Miller and Pettersson. So it is about whether Pettersson can deliver. And certainly, like I said, the early returns of the last week or so are very positive.
Do you think the goaltending can hold up for the remainder of the season? Not because of quality, of course, just, the wear
doing enough. Well, yeah. I mean, I think they really need Thatcher Demko to come back. The confidence level in Artur Shilov's is very low. That's very clear. That he had that good start in Utah, but we haven't seen much else. And that's unfortunate. He was a nice story. He's a great guy. But I think, essentially he's hit his ceiling, and they need Thatcher Demko back. I mean, obviously Demko is an unknown because there is going to be forever an injury question mark hanging over his head, no matter what. And Kevin Lankinen plays well in spurts, but Kevin Lankinen is not a guy that can carry the load. I mean, there's a reason why at most teams in the NHL have now shifted to this sort of 35-45 split in terms of games played, a 1A and a 1B. It's just the reality. The demands of the position are so high, you cannot expect a guy to be the guy in the way that we used to look at, 65 starts, 60 starts. Like, that's just not going to happen anymore. And Kevin Lankinen is a perfectly fine starter in that environment when he's making 35 starts. The question is, can Thatcher Demko be a 45 start guy? I mean, he's always been a guy that likes getting on a rhythm, but he just physically clearly can't do it. So is that something he's going to be able to handle once he comes back in? Obviously, they pushed the limit with him and they got burned. And now they've got to figure out if they can get somewhere with him in a new sort of capacity, I guess is the way to put it.
Quick clarification. You said Shilov's has hit his ceiling. Do you really think so? He's 23 years of age.
Yeah, Patrick has been resolute on this for a long time.
Yeah. Like, he just, the reality was he got scouted out. The long shots have always been a problem. And yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but I think
you think they have more faith in Tolopilo than Shilov's?
No, I don't know if that's really it. I don't think. I mean, he hasn't had a very good year either. No. So, there's a real. I wrote about this a while back. I mean, I didn't make a huge deal out of it, but like, to me, if you actually have a concern about the future of this team, it's in goal, because there's no next guy. It's also, I mean, obviously up front, there's no center coming down the pipe, but there's no goalie coming down.
You're not a Ty Young truther.
I mean, maybe. Listen, let's not
discount Young yet.
But it's got to be a long way for that kid to go, right? Like, he's had a great week. Don't get me wrong. Clearly, from afar, he's had a great week. But let's be clear. The preference, I think, was to have him play in the West. Would have been to have him play in the Western Hockey League,
right? And
there was nowhere in the Western Hockey League for him to play because he lost his job in Prince George last year. And he was the old guy.
To a top prospect, we must say, though. To a kid who's likely going in the first round here, and I think you're right. But he's had more than a good week. He's had a good year.
Yeah,
he was exceptional
in
the ECHL, and he's been good in 8 NHL games.
Yeah, sure. I'm just being.
But I get
it. No, I get
Patrick's
it.
right.
If you want to, we've talked about it before. Like, Mikey DiPietro had. You want to talk about the guy who had more talent? Which guy's more talent? Well, Mikey DiPietro had more talent, and he's. I think he's great. He's a great story, but he hasn't even played in the NHL this year.
No.
Yeah.
So let's be real. Sorry, kids.
I think, and I just want to preface this by saying, I do not blame him, because athletic careers are short, and because you want to be able to help your team, not hinder your team. But I think Thatcher has effectively made a business decision here this year. That the first injury was scary. Right, the popliteus and not having a roadmap for recovering and all that, and no goaltender or hockey player having ever gone through it. I think Thatcher has decided, unless everything is perfect, he's not playing this year.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not throwing him under the bus here, because he's got a contract to get after this year, and also I think he feels like, I've got to be able to help my teammates if I'm out there, not just be out there for reasons of valor and appearances and some of the other reasons that hockey players lean on when they return before they really should return. I think he's brittle to begin with, and I think there's probably people around him say, you just got to get right, son. So I don't blame him in the least. I'm just not sure you can count on him for more than a handful of games here.
He does nonetheless have something to prove, right, to him, to everybody. He's going to say, listen, I've had some struggles, but I'm not that guy. And, we're going to have to be realists and sit back and say, well, I don't know. But in the end, for him, the personal challenge is to prove us all wrong. And I hope he does, right? You hope he comes back to be the guy that he was 4 or 5 years ago. Because that was a great. I mean, he still is a great goalie.
Just last year.
But I just mean from the durability standpoint, right? Like, eliminate the question mark. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to eliminate the question mark, but they need him to be an effective player because he can be. You put him as an effective goalie, whether it's a 1-2 with him and Lankinen. Either way, you get good starts from him, and they were getting good starts, right? Like right before he got hurt. Like, let's not forget, they were getting really good starts, and they were starting to say, okay, and then it went sideways, right? Like that week before he got hurt, things were going well, right? Like the Canucks had a good, and this is the overall. I wrote about this yesterday. Like the funny thing in all this, for as badly as the results have gone, sort of in the last 3 weeks, I guess, since Four Nations. Like, if you zoom out and you look at how they've played since Miller was traded, they're creating a lot of stuff. They're actually creating good shots. They're actually playing really well defensively. It's not necessarily that they've had bad luck. There have been some bad games. Don't get me wrong.
PDO's not great. Yeah.
But the overall picture is that this is a team that actually could make something happen.
Yeah.
And I'm shining things up a little bit here. I get that. But I am very intrigued. Then that goes back to the original question. If Elias Pettersson really has found his way, this is a team that I think actually has reason to feel confident about itself.
Okay, we're going to ask you our poll question in a second, but just let me make the distinction. I think a lot of fans and media now look at this goaltending situation and go, oh, if only Thatcher Demko would get healthy and be able to play because he's better than Archer Sheloves. And I think the way Thatcher Demko is looking at it as, there's a halfway chance I get hurt if I have to play again. And I'm not even sure I can be that effective given the totality of injuries. And let's face it, just the sheer lack of practice and facing NHL shots this season. Like, he has not had that many NHL shots touch his equipment since last June.
Oh, so, I think he's clear. He's not coming back until he knows that he's ready to come back.
Exactly.
But that's fine.
And that's fine. And I don't blame him for that because whether it's here or elsewhere, Thatcher Demko has a lot of career left that he's got to worry about first and foremost. And I don't ever blame a guy for sticking up for number one and the long term. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question based on your answer, confidence. Are you a subscriber to just get in and anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I think in general, I would say no. And I actually think, honestly, this team is still obviously a work in progress in terms of its long-term destination. It is baffling to me that you go back to the trade deadline. They didn't even bring anybody in. But here's this team, and I think they've got a little bit of, they believe it, that we're still in it. And they've had enough results to tell them that, yes, they are right. Obviously, there have been some frustrations. The Dallas game probably deserved better, but in the end, they didn't get it done. Montreal, they got blitzed in the first period and tried to come back, and they ran out of steam. But credit to them, they came back against the for the first time this year, right after I wrote a column about how this team was lacking identity, and it was all about the fact that they hadn't won, come back to win a game. Well, they proved me wrong. Good for them. I'm sure that's what they put my name up on the tack board.
I was going to say, was your name on the whiteboard? Do you know whether or not there was a thanks, Patrick? Shove it up your.
I hope not. Before we're talking to them about UBC, but
okay,
we'll see. We'll see. But no, listen. Am I winning their in guy? Sure. Let's go for it. Let's have some fun. I will tell you that covering playoff games is a lot more fun than covering not playoff games, and certainly
so is attending them and watching
covering
them. Yes.
death march after death march. So selfishly, yes, winning your end, let's go.
How do they score enough goals to make that happen? I mean, last game out they win, and it's a fabulous comeback, but they did it in the third, and I don't think Nils Oman was a big part of it. Is taking Lekramaki, I mean, not that leaning on a rookie is necessarily good strategy either. How do they score goals? Is it just about Quinn Hughes and Pettersson? Is it do we just reduce it to that?
Well, Filipino's been pretty good. Filipino, let's be clear, in the line, if he remains on this team in the long run, and they build the way they want it to be, he will be a third line center. He is not going to be a second line center. But I admire what he has done since showing up and what he's tried to do. And generally the Canucks have been at the right end of the ice, I think partly because he plays with speed and he brings an element that this team doesn't otherwise have.
I like his skill set for sure. Yeah.
I like his skill set, but that said, he is not a natural full-on out-and-out goal scorer. They need Brock Besser. I mean, this is a story about Brock Besser. This is a story about Jonathan Lekramaki. Like, they have a couple wingers who know how to put the puck in the net. Now, Jonathan Lekramaki is not actually the solution because he's still a kid.
But it'd be nice for him to author a little story here, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. No, that's it. That's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
Like what you get from him is not just gravy. What you get from him will be great. And if you don't get anything from him, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. But you're putting him in the lineup because you believe he will bring you something. He will bring you some goals. And certainly, even since he's returned, I mean, he hasn't scored, but he gets shots off. Like, that's the thing that gets me, is he gets shots off there, and they're hard shots, right? Like, these are shots that the goalies have to, like, they have to manage, like, it's not just, oh, he got, it's on that, and oh, there we go. It's stuff. He challenges goalies. And I think, he came up and he's playing with a new center in Filipino. At least that's who he had been playing with. If he continues to play with Hedl, like, there's a guy that, if they can find something there, sure. But it's really, in the end, it's about Brock Besser, and they need Brock Besser to find his groove back with Elias Pettersson. And after the game last Friday on trade deadline, when Farhan and I touched a little bit on this, but I put it in my post game story. Like, Besser talked about sort of how his game has evolved. It was a really interesting question. Farhan basically said, you haven't played directly with PD in a long time. And do you think you guys can find that again? And Brock said, when I played with JT, I had to learn to play differently. Like, it was a much more direct, straight ahead game, obviously forechecking, winning pucks on the boards. And I think I got better at that. And I think he's right. I mean, obviously his feet are still not there, but you think about a guy going, you think about the puck goes in the corner. Brock Besser wins that puck a lot of the time, which isn't necessarily.
He's not first on the puck on the forecheck a lot because he doesn't have the pace. But you're right. Once it becomes more stationary, Brock is pretty effective there. Sidewall as well.
Yeah, but he also became a guy that recognized where the seams are, and that's why he scored 40 goals last year, right? Like, he went to goal scorer spots and scored goals, and scored in them in a variety of ways, which is the good thing. And Pettersson, himself has said, well, I think of myself more as a passer. And obviously he only has 1 assist in 4 games. But there is something there, right? Those two have played well, and that they need them to play well together, because if there's any center that fits best with Brock Besser, it is almost certainly Elias Pettersson, because he's right now is the best passer on the team.
Yeah.
It was JT Miller, but Pettersson and obviously Hughes. And Besser and Hughes, and there's something there, right? Like, they need production. They need both those guys, and that comes back to the original question, which was, winning your end. Well, yeah, if they're scoring, absolutely anything can happen.
Brock is a very intelligent hockey player.
Yes.
That is one of the things that has allowed Brock to compensate for his lack of pace. I would quibble a little with, I mean, you might be right given the dearth of centers. It's just, boy, there is not a lot of pace on that line with Elias and Brock. Like, you want rush chances, and you're getting rush chances with those 2/3. So, forecheck, that's also, so much is going to be on the left winger there. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
They're shorthanded here in terms of offensive talent through the top 6, so that may be the best way to go. But long term, I think each guy needs someone different if Brock is going to be here long term. Quickly, I want to ask you 2 more questions. Are you okay if I ask 2 more questions?
Go nuts.
Do you need the full 4 points this weekend? Are you happy with 3 of 4? Calgary is in Colorado tonight. They host Colorado tonight, and then on their big, long Eastern road trip through Toronto and the Rangers to start. Are you happy with 3 out of 4 points on the weekend, or do you need all 4?
I think with the win over Calgary on Wednesday, yes, 3 or 4 is fine. You want 4-4, obviously. This now becomes the goaltending question, right? Like, what are you going to do there, right? Like, I've already
I asked because they got Winnipeg coming here. Then you're on a hellish road trip. St. Louis, Rangers, Devils, Islanders.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least they got to sit in New York for a week, But
and play some underman teams too. Jersey is falling apart here with all their injuries.
Yeah, but that's who the Flames are playing to, right?
Yeah,
but like, listen, the challenge is, I mean, Utah. Like, I was talking to someone the other day, and there's a lot of buzz now about Utah, about how they're playing. Like, they're doing a lot of really good things well. I know that sounds strange to say, but that's what I mean. Like, they're doing the good things and they're doing them well. And they're a tough team. Like, they are going to be an interesting challenge. So realistically, 3 or 4. Yeah, obviously you have to beat the Blackhawks.
Yes. Lastly, Tom Wielander could be playing his final collegiate game tomorrow. Yeah. Do you know what the plan is? Do you know whether they have designs? Of course, they have to have him on the we talked about this with Gilman this week. When you're a first-round pick college, you're almost the expectation
top 10,
now is that you are
top 15.
Exactly, that they sign and they're going to spend some time on an NHL roster, if not in an NHL lineup. But you tell me, do you know the plan here? Do you think they would drop him right in, particularly if they have injuries to Myers and DPD?
Well, yeah, I mean, the injury situation obviously changes everything. I mean, it was funny as soon as we sort of knew that we saw that Forward was dealing with stuff, I'd heard a couple of game time decisions. I assume he was one of them. Myers obviously was the other. And now you're dealing with Junior Pettersson. Like, I found myself thinking, boy, this is exactly why I'm surprised they traded Carson Soucy, because there was an NHL competent defenseman, but now they don't have him. So there's a hole there. And that was the reality was, when you poked around and you said, why did you Carson Soucy? Well, because we believe in Junior Pettersson, we believe in Victor Mancini, and because Tom Wielander is probably going to be here very soon. So, will he play right away? I don't think so. The trend has not been to put him in right away. It's to get him some practices and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he's going to play. I don't think there's any doubt. Assuming BU, their season does come to an end in the sequence we expect them to come in, he's going to sign here. I have every expectation that's going to happen, and he is going to get some ice time. I mean, this is part of the thing. I mean, I said this on Saturday. For all the sort of misfire that was Friday in terms of handling the Besser situation, not ending up bringing in a new center. I think they like Pia Suter, but they could have gotten a second-round pick for him. For all the misfires, they did do one thing right. They've reset their defense, right? And you go all the way back to Marcus Pettersson, and I think Marcus Pettersson has been a good player for them. He's had some struggles, but I think he's battling something as well. But he's been a good player for them. And Victor Mancini is a very interesting player, and we've talked a lot about him here already in terms of how that depth chart plays out. This defense is an interesting looking defense now, and there is something there to build with. And Wielander obviously is going to come in, and we'll see what he's like. He's had a good year. He may, it's going to obviously be a big step up and a big demand on him, but he has progressed well enough this year to say this guy should be a top 4 defenseman. And that makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, that's a good thing. Like, I think it's a good thing here. And, they still, obviously, we talked about goals, and Blake is right. Who's going to score goals? And it's not going to be Tom Wielander. Let's be clear on that.
No. He's not.
But he can make a pass.
No, but he might be able to make a pass. Yeah, exactly.
And he'll be a contributor. And they've got a mobile defense core that is going to play more in the direction that Rick Tocchet wants them to play.
Dallas Aikens, we had him once for trade deadline in between coaching jobs, and he once said to us, I believe it was about Jeff Petrie, if I'm not mistaken, he said, don't discount that defenseman who doesn't have the high point total, but has started a play in his own zone that leads to a goal. They're offensive contributors, even if they don't
There's
show
a
up.
third assist.
Exactly. There's a third assist and their fourth assist sometimes
Yeah.
on a lot of goals that go the other way because of a smart play or a pass by a defenseman who's not going to get credit.
Marcus Pettersson was that guy in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Chris Anna, right? Like guys
good points. Yeah.
Are you in with Jeff at all this week on Rank Click?
Not
weekend?
currently scheduled to be.
Okay. All right. Then we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Sounds good, guys.
Thank you.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
It's a Garrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And this segment brought to you by the fine folks at Pacific Toyota and all their dealers. And they are so generous, so wanting to get you excited about the Vancouver Canucks down the stretch here. They want to send you to the Kanika Minolta President's Club section, you know, the real fancy pants section. You there, brand new Canucks jerseys on your backs as well. This contest has only got a few days left on it. So get your submissions in. Click on the link in our episode description, or you can follow Toyota Pacific on Instagram and Facebook at Toyota Pacific for your chance to enter contest open to BC and Yukon residents age of majority. The BZ4X, their brand new electric vehicle. Take one for a test drive. If you've been half thinking about joining the electric revolution, stay in the HOV lane for good. And it's a really fun car to drive. Go check it out at your Pacific Toyota dealer, shoptoyota.ca.
Jeff Marek is the host of The Sheet, weekdays at noon Pacific time here on the Nation Network. And he joins us typically Fridays. How are you?
I am well. I am looking forward to the weekend hockey action. This has been an interesting 7 days around the NHL. One thing that I was wondering about coming off trade deadline last Friday. I don't know about you guys. And again, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not going to name names. This is just vibes. This is just feelings. But did this year's trade deadline kind of have a July 1st tampery kind of feel?
Oh,
to anybody? Does anyone else feel that way? Like
I said that about the Seth Jones
about a lot of players.
Yeah. I said that about the Seth Jones trade because Ekblad had the PD thing, and like that was a little suspicious to me. But
whatever do you mean, Jeff Marek?
Yeah, what
you specify here?
Again, I'm dancing on a. This is just this is just vibes. This is just feelings. It just I don't know. It just kind of felt to me much like on July 1st. All of a sudden, these wonderful long-term contract extensions appear just after noon Eastern. This seemed like a lot of people knew about a lot of people's business all at the same time here. I don't know. It just felt that way. That's all. 7 days.
I will say this, though, notwithstanding the Vancouver Canucks, but more of that, please, on trade deadline.
100%.
Like those were meaty trades. The Ottawa Buffalo trade, of course, the Rantanen trade, even the Colorado-Boston trade of the centers and we totaled it up, Jeff. I think it's something like 13 second-round picks and 8 first-round picks went over the course of like deadline week. Like that was fun.
Yeah. You know what I think? You know what I think a lot of it is, honestly? I think it is the salary cap is going up, and so now teams feel like they can buy their way out of mistakes in the offseason, or they have some room to clean up their salary cap. Flat cap, it's your margin of error is so slim, so you really don't want to make any mistakes. So you're extra cautious and extra conservative. Now everybody's looking at the idea of the cap growing for the next 3 years and saying, you know what, let's just make a mess of the season, whatever, and we'll clean up our cap in the off season, whatever. Let's just it's the old Bobby Clark philosophy. Doesn't matter what we pay, we got the guy, the old Ed Snyder, whatever. Do what it takes, just get the guy, just get the player. It seemed very much like this time around there was that vibe around the NHL. And I'm with you guys. Like more of that, please, every year. Thank you.
So when now 7 days out, especially when you look back at what the Canucks most specifically didn't do, but also did do, because they dipped the toe early in the week and trade Carson Soucy for a third. You're thinking, okay, they're going to extract some assets for their surplus here. but then make it sound like we're going to hold tight because we think we got a chance, but then they don't add even though they think they have a chance, and now ultimately they've got defensive injuries where Carson Soucy would come in handy. Like it feels like they were really caught in between thoughts, and now they're really caught in between thoughts.
Players blocking shots, players getting elbows in the head, and all of a sudden, now where's that Soucy guy? Is he still around? We might want to stick him in the lineup here for the game against the Hawks on Saturday. Like we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. Like I don't think this is an organization that's looking to do anything other than to improve and get into the playoffs and try to knock some billiard balls around, and even more so look around the division. Look around. I mean, we're all making a big deal about the Calgary Flames, and there's still no guarantees there. Nice win, by the way, the other night by the Vancouver Canucks of the Calgary Flames, but like it's really hard. Like here's an obvious statement. It's really hard to win the Stanley Cup, and it's really hard to get close to winning the Stanley Cup. 82 games is awful. 82 games is a grind, and then try to win 16 more when the puck is heavier and all the hits are for keeps. I mean, that's a real challenge. But I think if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you look around again, like we talked about last week. Sure, Calgary, sure, Utah, sure, St. Louis, but you look around and say, why not us? Why don't we have a shot? And St. Louis is feeling the same way, and Utah is feeling the same way, and Calgary are feeling the same way. So why take that step back at all if you're Vancouver?
So that brings us to our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Do you believe in just get in and anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I don't know about anything, right? You get in and essentially you bought a lottery ticket, and it's only a matter of your odds at that point, health, having an easy series. If you're going to do anything along the way, you do need a 4-gamer. It's a grind when everything is a 7-game series. I know we all point to the St. Louis Blues and say, look, it can happen. They had that miracle season where everybody was going to be waived and traded and fired, etc. And they switched out coaches and they called up the AHL goaltender, and instead of waiving Jay Bouwmeester, they kept him. Instead of sending Pat Maroon down to the American League, they kept him. And Doug Armstrong just sort of sat on his hands, and everything ended up working out just fine. It's hard. I don't know that if you get in, anything can happen. It's rare for that anything, which we all assume to be the Stanley Cup. If you get in, you can do something. But the way that the playoffs are structured, coming off of an 82-game season, this is why the Cinderella story doesn't happen in the Stanley Cup final. This is why it doesn't happen. It's just too damn hard. I know Vegas is a great one. We mentioned St. Louis, but this is increasingly, more rare and rare. So it's put it this way, it's hard. Can anything happen? Yes, because just getting in is a lottery ticket. But I think that's what Vancouver wants. Like, they just want to get in and see what happens.
I hear teams declare we want to win the Stanley Cup this year. I hear teams that are struggling that say, okay, we want to make the playoffs this year. We heard the Canucks say this 2 years ago. Yeah. I don't hear a lot of teams be honest and say, it'd be nice to make it to the second round. But deep down, they probably believe that, don't they? I mean, it is a useful tool to get more playoff experience. And if the Canucks don't win the Stanley Cup this year, and they probably won't, it's still useful for a team to enter into a series and try to win a series. Isn't that true?
More so with teams with a lot of young players, and that's why outside of the obvious, where our hearts are all broken about the Gaudreau family this year, we're all cheering for Columbus. On the one hand, we're all cheering for Columbus for that very reason, and Calgary as well. But we're also saying, like, this would be great for all these young players. Like, that's not just this experience of the playoffs, but having a meaningful 82-game season. I mean, ask these guys, like, there's nothing worse than being out of the playoffs by Christmas and then everything is an empty calorie game. Like, every game's potato chip. It doesn't matter. I know you got to be professional and show up. Like, just go through what Seth Jones just went through with the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, how many empty calorie games did Seth Jones have to play before he finally got his way out of Chicago and can now finally play some meaningful games? Again, like, I know you have to be a professional, etc., but everyone's a human being here, and that's hard, man. Like, that's really, really difficult. But is there value in it? Yeah, absolutely. For more specifically for young teams, just so they know what a real 82-game season feels like. The playoffs are the playoffs, but that 82 games, here's what a real season feels like, not just we're bowing out before Christmas and we'll see you next year at training camp.
Before we leave deadline, you had a terrific interview with Carolina Hurricanes general manager Eric Tulsky this week.
Yeah, he was good.
He was. He's a smart guy, and good on him for coming on your show and being as forthright as he was. Do you believe there was a last-minute Besser to Carolina deal that the Hurricanes couldn't pivot to because of how long the Rantanen thing was going?
I'm not so sure. I'm sure that there were things that Carolina wanted to do, but weren't able to because so much of that day was revolving around Mikko Rantanen. It wouldn't surprise me. Let me put it to you that way, Matt. But I haven't heard that specifically. But I wouldn't be shocked if you said, this is what went down. But a lot of that day was like, I mean, so much of the week for Eric Tulsky just revolved around Mikko Rantanen and getting that deal done. One of the things that Tulsky mentioned was not that he was like throwing his head coach under the bus, but like it wasn't as if the way that Rod Brindamore kind of presented it is he showed up in Raleigh and said, "There's only 4 teams that are going to play for it, and you're not one of them." And that's not exactly how it went. He didn't say that it's only 4 teams are going to play for. That conversation didn't happen till a week out of trade deadline. That it was obvious that it wasn't going to happen with the Hurricanes and Mikko Rantanen, and that's when you start to gauge the interest, gauge what you're going to get back from the various teams, and then start to whittle down and put your best possible deal together. But no, it's a long-winded answer, I know, Matt, but it wouldn't surprise me. No, I just haven't heard that specifically.
They had an overture on Elias Pettersson last year before he signed. We had heard them connected to Pettersson earlier this year. I had a smart person tell me this week, I think they're going to be interested in Pettersson this summer as well, that he's an analytical Carolina Hurricanes profile of player, at least what the front office is looking for.
And a quiet market. I think
almost the perfect market.
If there's one, like, honestly, like, close your eyes and imagine, okay, who's the one player in the NHL that needs to be surrounded by silence for a long time? It's Elias Pettersson. Right? Not everything needs to be a headline. Doesn't need to wake up to that every day. Now, mind you, he's played much better the last few games too. You guys know that a lot better than I do. But it does seem like a hand to glove fit. Elias Pettersson in Carolina, not an easy deal to do, obviously, with the contract and what the compensation is. But he does sort of fit the profile. I do believe of what Carolina's trying to do.
Although funny, he's effortlessly done media here the last week and looked happy enough to do it because he's playing better. And, he looked like a chick trying to escape the egg for, the first 4 months of the season, but he may have breached the shell at this point. Are you believing what you're seeing?
I want to put it this way. I want to believe it because I don't want to see. That's a great analogy, by the way. Like, bravo for you. Like, take the rest of the week off, sir.
Honestly, been sitting here for 13 years, Jeff. That one might make it to the podium. His own personal top 3.
Maddie, and they say this country has no poets. Please, this country has no poets.
Hey, English Lit major, UBC. There you go.
English philosophy, University of Guelph, right here. Blake and I will get along famously.
Renaissance man.
Man. But he didn't know that Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Emperor's New Clothes yesterday, so he wasn't that good a student.
It was a long time ago. Many brain cells in between then and now. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Elias Pettersson.
Belief in him, yes.
I put it this way. I don't know. I mean, I don't think really any of us do. I just know that I really want this to be true because I don't want to see anyone continue to go through what Elias Pettersson is going through. Again, like, I don't cheer for teams. I cheer for people. I want this guy to come out the other end of this. I can only imagine how much it feels like living in your own head the way that Elias Pettersson has over how many years now. So is it real? I don't know, but I really want it to be real. How about that? I'm hoping it's real.
It was secondhand cringe. It was secondhand discomfort watching him have to go through all of this, and some, in December, he just reverted to like flat out lying just to get away from everything.
To get away from it all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's on my list here again? Oh, yes.
You know what? By the way, can I mention one thing about Eric Tulsky here? Like when you look at, I was making this point the other day to someone. I might have been on the show. when you look at all the things that Eric Tulsky is qualified to do, and you look at like all the patents that he holds, like there's a line in Slapshot. Look at Ned. He doesn't need hockey. Look at Eric. He doesn't need hockey. He does this because it's fun. It's a challenge. He likes it. I think he looks at I think he looks at hockey games or roster constructions like it's a puzzle. It's like a Rubik's Cube that continually fights back. And I think that challenge excites him. But if it was all over for Eric Tulsky tomorrow, I don't think he'd be one of those guys that needs to get back in the game.
Wins and losses are fun, right? Analytics are analytics, and you can find puzzles everywhere else in life, but you don't get wins and losses everywhere else in life, and there's a rush in that.
The thing is, I think that's why, in a lot of ways, he's unlike any other general manager that we see in the NHL. He could turn and leave and walk away from hockey tomorrow. When you look around the NHL, how many people can you honestly say that guy could walk away from hockey?
Financially, yes, but
there's some financially, absolutely. But you know what I'm getting at, right? Like,
yes,
there's some people like this. This is what I do. This is what I've only known this since I was 14 years old, shooting frozen cow patties off the side of a barn in Swift Current. Like, this is all that I do. It's hockey, right? Eric can go and do a lot of different things, and I think that's why it makes him a unique manager, in that he has like this sort of the spirit of entrepreneurialism, in that he says, I'm going to take 10 swings, and if I get on base 6 times, I'm going to Cooperstown. I don't think he sweats one loss. I think he looks at it this way. He very much has a vibe like either Carolina's going to win a lot of games and people are going to like him, or they're going to lose a lot of games and they're not going to like him. Everything in between is noise. That's really what every time I talk to Tulsky, that's the takeaway that I have. He just looks at everything else as noise. We're either winning or we're losing. Everything else is noise.
But Jeff, he also has the educational background that he can go out and do other things, whereas that has not always been the case with hockey general managers who, make their way up through hockey scouting and don't really have career options beyond that. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. Tocchet has an option here on his contract. The Canucks have an option on Tocchet. What do you think? I mean, it's been a season, going through hell for Tocchet. Everybody knows that. What coach would sign up for what he
looks a little worn too.
And he has just started this week, to his infinite credit, for the first time in like 2 years, to start to get a little impatient and push back in that in public forums. What's your sense on where Tocchet is next year?
The Rick Tocchet, I always think about Rick Tocchet as a player initially. And this was a guy that overcame a lot of obstacles to get to his position in the game and be successful internationally and in the NHL and cups, etc., and do all the things that he did. And he did everything the hard way. Like, he was a guy, there's the old saying, to be successful, you take the stairs. There's no elevator. Like, Rick Tocchet took the stairs. There's no elevator for Rick Tocchet. For some guys there are. But not for Rick Tocchet. And that's why whenever I think about this or have a conversation about it, I always say to myself, Rick Tocchet's had the hard way every single time, and he's never quit. And he's never said, this is too damn hard. Rick Tocchet's never said, oh, I've had enough. Like, put it this way, I would be surprised if Rick Tocchet said, I'm not up for this. Because that's not the Rick Tocchet. Again, maybe I'm just putting too much into the player that I saw, but I do believe that you carry that ethic along with you in your future career. For Rick's case, obviously, it's coaching. The guy that I watched play hockey, and we all watched hockey, never quit and fought for every inch. All those cliches. That's why I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that Rick Tocchet would say, "This is too hard. I don't want to do this." That's not the Rick Tocchet that I know. I'm not sure if you guys feel differently, but that would surprise me.
That's the theory.
That to me is not Rick Tocchet.
That's a great answer.
I've got a pet project to bounce off of you.
Okay.
Let's do the goaltending thing.
Okay, sure.
Because that dovetails with the Canucks a little more readily.
Okay.
So Aiden Hill signs. The list of UFA goaltenders this summer is not glorious. Freddie Anderson, Samsonov, Georgiev, and some backups. Who's looking? And does that give Thatcher Demko some decent trade value with 1 year left at $5 million on his deal?
I wonder, And again, this is not a report. This is just me wondering, because I've wondered the same thing you guys have. I wonder if there's a fit in Los Angeles for Thatcher Demko. That would
probably be his number one market to go to if you had to leave Vancouver,
to home, right?
Yeah,
That's the one. That's the one that's the one that stands out that I do wonder about. You're right. Like, there are a lot of goalies that are available. I've always liked Jake Allen. I'll tell you, and he looked great again last night against the New Jersey Devils. But what I'm always interested in is the one that, nobody really saw coming, the one that had, a great American Hockey League career, and it just maybe took a little bit longer because that's what happens with goaltenders, and then pops for someone in the NHL. I mean, that story is long and well told. I wonder about someone like Hunter Shepard. I really do. In the Washington Capitals organization, like, they've got their two guys locked up now, for the next, minimum 3 years. But that's one guy that if I'm an NHL team and I'm looking around and I'm saying, you know what? I know what I'm getting in Samsonov. I know what I'm getting in Frederik Andersen. I know what I'm getting in Jake Allen. I want to roll the dice here. I wonder if Hunter Shepard could be that next guy. I don't know. 29 years old. There are times in the American Hockey League where he's been fantastic. There have been other times where, pedestrian. But I wonder if he could be that next one. I really do.
Yeah, he's won 2 Calder Cups down there with the
Yes.
Hershey Bears, posting sublime numbers. Not quite as good this year, and he's got a few NHL games on his resume.
You know who's had a good year is Mikey
Demko,
Mikey DiPietro.
Yes, he
DiPietro.
has. Yeah, we
Yes.
noted that a couple weeks ago. Thatcher Demko, for those who don't know, a former Los Angeles Junior King, a former San Diego Junior Gull. His father lives down in the San Diego area.
You're getting that soap and warm water feeling about Demko, Los Angeles.
Okay.
How about trading for Hunter Shepard right now so that they can get to Thatcher Demko's return? How about that?
Okay, pet project time with Blake Price. Okay, and Jeff, just so you know, this isn't a report. This is just him doing the Jeff Merrick music, that emoji.
Okay.
Again, I have been
scratching his chinny chin.
I've been ahead of the game here in my worry on behalf of the Canucks. Where do they find their next center? I think I've asked you this already. So, because the UFA class not great. I mean, I don't think John Tavares fits where they're trying to go, or anybody else for that matter. And outside of the most creative trades possible, the other option is an offer sheet. And we saw 2 last year that were successful. And the offer sheet class is a little bit more interesting. The Canucks would need to trade to get to the interesting.
Teams have more cap space, right?
To get to the interesting offer number, the Canucks need to go to Montreal and get their 3rd round pick back. That shouldn't be that difficult, really. You'd have to do a pick swap. You'd have to probably flip a second their way or something like that. But you have to get your 3rd round pick back.
Yep.
But then should the Canucks be aggressive and try to find somebody's second line center that they can make their 1B center? And a resurgent Elias Pettersson maybe makes that more imperative, because then you're a lot closer to contending again if Pettersson is truly back. Again, I go to a guy like Marco Rossi, who Bill Guerin may or may not have a long-term fit for because of his size. Bill Guerin likes the big rough and tumble guys. Yeah. That's just a name I'm going to peel off the top of my head. But if you offer him $9 million a year, does he start to grow into that contract pretty quickly?
I'm biased because I love Marco Rossi. Again, I'll betray my bias. Covered him in junior hockey. Love the skill. Love the work ethic. Like, this guy works like a fiend. Like, honestly, he's one of my favorite players.
AFP's got him at $6 million a year for his next contract coming off his ELC. Yeah. But if you give him $9 million,
well, no, you have
do the Wild have to walk away?
Yeah. You have to. I mean, it'll be a tough one for Bill Guerin here for it, because now all of a sudden, like, they don't have the albatross. Your Samuel Taylor Coleridge reference there for you, Mr. Price. They don't have the albatross anymore around the neck. I'll tell you. You know what really scared managers last year was the St. Louis offer sheets.
Yeah.
Like when you look at like one of the reasons why, like, let me go back to Tulsky here for a second. One of the reasons why Jake Gensel ended up leaving Carolina is they were too preoccupied Carolina was in making sure that they didn't fall victim to an offer sheet. And so they spent a lot of time making sure that they weren't going to get offer sheeted. And then when St. Louis did what they did, now all of a sudden, like, this is Doug Armstrong doing this. Like, this isn't just a war.
Old school guy.
Like, this isn't just a war between a couple of owners in Carolina and Montreal. Like, this is like, whoa, Doug Armstrong did this. And honestly, it sent a chill through managers in the NHL. And now I don't know that as much as I want to say, like, there's going to be the summer of offer sheets, going to be flying all over the place.
But it's not taboo anymore, clearly.
I don't, it's not taboo. It never really should have ever been taboo.
Right.
I think that Doug Armstrong really opened a door here, and I think teams are more scared of it than before, and they insulate and protect themselves so they don't get offer sheeted. But there is one player out there that I really do wonder about when it comes to offer sheets. Devin Levi.
Oh, really?
Why him?
I don't know that anyone in that organization is too thrilled to be there right now. And I don't know how this thing is going to turn around and how quickly it's going to turn around. Like I just talked about Hunter Shepard a second ago with the Hershey Bears and Devin Levi. Like we all know how good this guy can be. And I think as a Canadian hockey fan, I'm saying to myself, I really hope he gets to that place where he can be that goalie we think that he can always be.
Yeah.
I really do wonder if he would be, because I mean, it takes two. Like, you know, you can submit an offer sheet to a player. Player doesn't have to sign it.
No, exactly.
Right. So I really do wonder if all of a sudden someone submits an offer sheet to Devin Levi. Hey, listen, maybe even, again, this is just chin scratch, maybe even Montreal. Submits an offer sheet to Devin Levi.
So people still believe in him, Jeff? It's 39 NHL games with the 329 goals against and an 894 GAA. So people still believe in him. They just attribute this to Buffalo being Buffalo, and his
AHL numbers are spectacular.
He's been buffaloed.
Like, put it this way, Rochester might win the Calder Cup this year. Rochester is outstanding. Laval's great. Hershey's great again. Rochester is right there. Like, that coaching staff has done a great job. Those players have been awesome. Noah Ostland's probably a player we should talk a lot more about. There are actually some good players still coming for the Buffalo Sabres. But I think everybody looks at just like we looked at Dylan Cousins, and look, he's got a new lease on life and he's going to shoot the lights out in Florida. Look at Sam Reinhart, a new lease on life. Brandon Montour, a new lease on life. Like, this story's been well told. And I think a lot of people look at the Buffalo Sabres and say, hang on, grain of salt with all the numbers we're seeing there, because it's been a miserable place to play and everybody's playing one level higher than they should. So grain of salt with all of it.
All right. We'll look for that. We're fresh out of time. Thank you for yours. Very quickly, because you know I love to give you a little something at the end.
Okay, yeah.
We had the Montreal Canadiens here in town this week. How many Montreal Canadiens goaltenders have won the Hart Trophy?
I know one for sure. I'm assuming another one.
2.
Yeah, I'll just say 2. Theodore and who? Dryden?
Jeff, who were the 2 you were thinking of, Jeff?
Did Jacques Plante not win it?
Jacques Plante won it. Jose Theodore won
Jose
it.
Theodore won it, yeah.
Dryden, no.
Are we forgetting
Patrick Waugh won?
Pride of Anaheim Lake, British Columbia?
Carey Price won.
Carey Price 3, of course, yes.
That's
3.
what makes it a great question. You think Waugh, you think we're like all the Canadians goaltenders. 7 all time, 3 of the Montreal Canadiens. Hasek the only to win multiple.
Let me throw another Montreal one out at you here that I like to mention and draw the ire of everybody outside of Montreal Canadiens fans. You know, the ire that I have for the term original 6. I like to refer to it, by the way, as solvent 6. These are the solvent 6 teams. But what I always like
through the early days.
What I always like to remind people of, there is no original 6. There is original 1, the Montreal Canadiens. Everybody else is an expansion team.
Oh boy, how about that? Yeah, and Earl Zuckerman and all the hockey historians who can take you back.
Right on, Marek. Yeah, Earl
when the
McGill,
sport was when the sport was founded, established in that city. Okay, thanks for this. Have a great week. Until next Friday.
Thanks, boys. Talk in a week.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. If you're heading to a game in downtown Vancouver, and there are many here this weekend and coming up, make a staycation out of it. Book your stay here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Harrison Price rate. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. This segment, a presentation of Harrison Price Gin. That's right. We have a gin.
What?
Yeah.
Right there.
It's in partnership with Resurrection Spirits. It's made in East Vancouver. It's using BC ingredients, triple distilled, 100% organic rye grain, and infused with 5 timeless botanicals: juniper, coriander, angelica root, lemon peel, and rose. It's a gin that has character. It's designed for those who appreciate the art of true craftsmanship in every pour, and we're giving you $5 off at resurrectionspirits.ca with the code S&P. That's the and symbol, ampersand, S&P. Gets you $5 off. Resurrectionspirits.ca. Get them all you can. Limited edition run.
By
S&P.
BC. By BC.
Absolutely.
By Canada. Here we go.
So, Vancouver Whitecaps FC will play Mexico's Pumas in the CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinals. Pumas beat the Costa Rican side. Sorry, they drew the Costa Rican side but advanced on the aggregate. And, of course, the winner of that plays either LAFC or Inter Miami. And how about this? The head coach of Pumas, former Vancouver Whitecaps midfielder Efrain Juarez. This is just like the reunion tour. Kendall Waston and against Deportivo Saprissa. They're seeing all their friends, their old mates.
And if you're thinking, I don't really remember Efrain Juarez.
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't.
Not a successful run as a player.
Brought in as a defensive player that was supposed to bring some poise and experience. He was freaking terrible.
Yeah,
so there's revenge here for the Whitecaps fans.
Oh, stop.
Yes.
Just stop.
Revenge.
You think some of them are still sucking on Efrain Juarez's performance way back when? Come on.
Honestly, I don't think people remember him.
That's it.
I honestly don't think they remember him.
Caps are in Dallas tomorrow, looking to go 4-0 in MLS play. One of just 2 undefeateds for the moment. Boy, totality of games here, you think at some point is going to have to rear its ugly head. But they've played so darn well with Jesper Sorensen. I was with our friend Ben Steiner last night at the U Sport Final 8 Championships at UBC. He was just talking, and of course, Ben is a soccer podcaster and writes for MLS, so he has great experience here. And he was telling me just, guys plug into that system. They know what to do. They're executing it crisply already at this time of year. And like everybody else, they have been so much fun to watch, everyone. Get yourself to Apple Television and watch the Whitecaps here. This is some of the best soccer we have seen them play, and an entertaining, let's push forward, look for goals brand of footy as well. I am concerned a little, however, Blake, about this CONCACAF Nations League semifinal, Canada-Mexico, March 20th at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Here's why I'm concerned. It is being used as a dummy run to test a new pitch as part of the trial ahead of next summer's World Cup, where SoFi will host games. SoFi is an artificial surface for the LA Rams, the LA Chargers. You may remember last year's Gold Cup, the pitches in Charlotte and where else was it?
Disasters.
Which were absolute catastrophes. They tried to bring in the grass to make it pristine, to meet all the FIFA standards. All the soccer players prefer grass.
Jesse Marsh loved the Dallas one, though. The one in Dallas, he said, was great. So, like, there was hits and misses.
And they played on absolute mud puddle. Like, they were horrible.
Yeah, big divots coming out. But
they looked terrible. They played terrible.
But here's the thing. Like, this should be a doable technology. This should be a problem that is figured out. And the fact that they could look at two different pitches and go, why did this one work and why did this one not? You would think they've problem solved enough that it should be doable now for the SoFi Stadium. And then I haven't got confirmation on this. I'll try to dig on it. But, is whoever's doing SoFi for the World Cup, are they also doing BC Place? Or is Canada in charge of outfitting the stadium themselves? I don't know the answers to that. Now, FIFA has representatives that tour around. They've got a say in it.
Oh, my God.
But
like, I can remember being a young reporter at my desk at the Ottawa Citizen when the word broke that Canada was bidding for a World Cup or something like that. And I had the manual sent to me for what FIFA requires for the grass pitches at a World Cup. First of all, it was some of the densest reading that I had ever encountered, and I read some pretty dense communication theory and other stuff at university. And then secondly, the specifications in terms of length of the individual blades.
Well, I mean,
like, I'm sure there's agronomists out there for whom that is a passion project. But I do wonder if you spend day after day of your life on that file, right? Like, is the grass meeting the standards of length in all the World Cup stadiums in North America?
To be fair, don't you want some uniformity? Like, it'd be weird if one...
Of course you want some uniformity. I'm just saying that is not exactly the most fun or entertaining professional pursuits.
I am sure. Especially if you're not a green thumb yourself. You're Paul DeBron on the lawn.
What does a good day at the office look like in that role? Oh, they met the standard on blade length. High five.
Soil firmness.
Yeah, exactly. The firmness
soil density
was outstanding in Fort Worth.
We all strive for perfect firmness.
Yes, exactly. The Seahawks introduced new quarterback Sam Darnold yesterday. That meant John Schneider, the general manager, spent some time with media, and he said Geno Smith rejected an offer and didn't counter. So there's two schools of thought here. Either the Seahawks didn't get back and counter and go, okay, we really want you, Geno, or that Geno didn't really want to be there, and maybe he just wanted to be with Pete.
Yep.
And frankly, I can understand that. Pete Carroll is an incredible human being. I can imagine it is difficult to go from a head coach like Pete Carroll, who is outgoing, fun, personable, cares about you, lets you, unlike other football coaches, Pete was like, you be you, politics and all. I don't care. You bring it to the table. Most football coaches are controlling, don't want distractions. If that's the case, more power to you, Geno Smith.
Also, Vegas is throwing everything at the wall to be better, and you're not so sure about what the Seahawks are next season.
No.
A lot of question marks.
And the other thing is, you're a quarterback in Vegas. You can pick Tom Brady's brain, right?
Yeah.
Minority owner there. Seahawks bringing in former Chicago Bears guard Tevin Jenkins. That would fill a need. Probably one of the best guards available. And there's smoke around Cooper Kupp, the Washington State native and former Rams receiver at the time we record this, so we'll see where that
The underlying
goes.
stats for him the last couple of years have been atrocious for Cooper Kupp. His ability to get open just has not been there with the injuries.
He's been so injured, yeah.
You hope there's a renaissance season in there. You hope there's not a lot of guaranteed money.
The other thing is he's a little older. Like, he debuted.
He's 31.
Yeah, he debuted. He was an old rookie, and so he's on the wrong side of 30. The UBC women's basketball team advanced to the semifinals of the Indochino Women's and Men's U Sport Final Eights out at UBC. 55-50 win over St. Mary's last night. They will play the University of Saskatchewan in a rematch of the Canada West Final Saturday, 6 p.m. at Doug Mitchell. The championship game, should they beat Saskatchewan, would go 4 p.m. Sunday. And then I felt so bad for head coach Kevin Hansen of the UBC men's
The legendary
teams.
Kevin Hansen.
Oh, to get this tournament back on campus, first time in 9 years. They had an excellent team this year. So did UVic. UVic advanced, went toe-to-toe with the Vikings. They picked an absolutely terrible time to play what I have to assume is one of their worst games of the year. They got destroyed
by the potato farmers.
By UPEI, 90-72. And there was probably like 2,500 people there, Blake. It was a good atmosphere. Talented team. You could see it that they had a size advantage. They had an athletic advantage. They got a highlight moment early in the game and then just got super sloppy with the basketball. It was 11-2 before you knew it. They were chasing the game early, could never get it back. And, poor Kevin and the UBC Thunderbirds to go down in the quarters as the higher seed on your home floor. Hearts out to those folks.
I think you hope for at least one win, don't you, when you're doing
for
this?
Sure. It's a
one.
really good feel. Like Victoria's terrific, Ottawa U's terrific. There's some really good teams out there this year, but this was a very winnable game if UBC plays to their talents and to their record this year. And it didn't come together last night on the biggest stage. The other thing I will say, the basketball community turned out. I really wish U Sports would look at it with their ticketing partner, Ticketmaster, and find a way to get students into the gymnasium. You see this throughout the United States here with NCAA conference tournaments and then March Madness starting. I understand there are finances involved, but on a lot of campuses, students either get in for free or it's a very small charge to get into the game.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To charge the students full ticket price to get into the finals when your school is there, I mean, some can't afford. You're just going to dissuade. So it didn't have the atmosphere of a robust, student section with the chants and all the things that we see in U.S.
That's a no-brainer.
College basketball, which is what makes it. I would encourage U Sport to look at that with Ticketmaster going forward for their finals. And not just in basketball either, in all the sports. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results for Thursday. What does the Canucks playoff push need the most? There were 4 options here. Quinn Hughes, 100%. Petey, resurgent Demko contributions, or other. The people said.
Petey.
Percentage?
60.
67. 24% said Hughes at 100%. And we said, look, that's either health or performance, define as you see fit. Demko contributions got 9%, other just 2%. One CDN said Petey is the obvious answer. Hughes at 75% is still better than a majority of defensemen. Demko has missed so many games, it's probably not even worth risk putting a cold goalie in because the games will be too important. So echoed us, really.
Yeah.
Vancouver, people forget so quickly how good Demko was. Sure, Lanks has had a good year, but he's nowhere close to Prime Demko. Prime Demko gives this team a chance to win every single night. I have nightmares about what last playoffs look like with a healthy Demko versus the others. And then a lot of you said, oh, you needed all of the above. Well, intentionally not, because we wanted you to make a choice. But Nucks 12. I love the analogy here. If you're going outside in a snowstorm, what do you need most to stay warm? Clothes, a boot on your left foot, or a boot on your right foot? You need it all. Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, that's just a bit of a cop-out, but yes, I hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a good analogy, at least. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. The Whitecaps match was not in Monterey. The game had to be moved because of a Shakira concert. I got that wrong. You said January, or you said a few weeks ago. I forget on what, but it was January. That's more than a few weeks ago, Blake. It's at least 6.
Too fews.
And then the biggest omission, we set it up. We put it on a tee for producer Mike Rogerson to tell his Snoop Dogg story, and he demurs. He doesn't tell you what it was like drinking gin and juice with Snoop and the crew. He doesn't tell you about the security guy / blunt roller and what happened on that patio off the audio booth way back when at the rap party.
Trying to remain professional here, sir.
Well, the one thing he...
I don't know why.
What's your line about the night?
The beginning was a great memory.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Anything to self-report, anything in the inbox or the feedback channels?
Nothing that I see.
Right.
Nope.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do, of course, subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors we hear you, we keep telling you about, and keep it local. Enjoy the games.